Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. My name is Brandon Drum. I'm here with Parker Thune, and it is the off season. But is it really the off season? It's always going. Camp season is about to start up. Spring football is upon us. Okay, preps has started up. I'm gonna be hitting up a bunch of schools over the next week. It's gonna be awesome. I'm gonna be hitting up a Dallas. I think Thursday I'm going to a couple of scrimmages. It is going to be fun in the spring sun, covering some high school football and seeing some of OU's top targets. We'll have all that information, obviously, on ouinsider.com. Parker, my man. First, what's going on? I know you have been out and about. You went up to Kansas, stopped in Wichita, stopped in Kansas City, saw some of Oklahoma's forthcoming targets in 25, 26, and 27. What say you about some of those stops up there?
Well, I don't want to say a ton because I said quite a bit at ouinsider.com, if you're a member over there. So I checked in with Dawson Merritt, the four-star linebacker target in the 2025 class. In Wichita, saw Desan Brame, the four-star tight end target in 2025, as well as Hunter Higgins, who's a three-star for now in the 2026 class, but has some very impressive offers, of which Oklahoma is one that's very, very high on his list. And then got the opportunity Monday afternoon to go down to Elgin and check in with Anthony Agumero, who is now less than a week away from his May 21st commitment. Obviously, the expectation is that it's going to be Oklahoma that lands him. And I think what's interesting, Brandon, is not only to think about what Agumero himself would bring to the table if indeed he chooses Oklahoma, but the trickle-down effect that could have with a guy like Darius Afalava. Well, not a guy like Darius Afalava, specifically Darius Afalava, the four-star offensive lineman from Sky Ridge, Utah, who is a childhood friend of Anthony Agumero. And so if they were to land him, not only would they be able to add a real high upside offensive lineman, the number 2 offensive lineman in the state, and somebody that's going to be instantly competitive in that guard room, but they significantly bolster their chances of adding the number 1 prospect from the entire state of Utah in Darius Afalava, and a top 200 player nationally, according to Rivals. So that'll be interesting to monitor as the weeks progress.
Yeah. Well, I got to ask you the Merritt situation. Obviously, OU linebacker right now, they just have Marcus James. Um, I I'm trying to decide if I feel like Oklahoma takes more than 2 linebackers in this
Well,
class.
we've talked about Merritt the most, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, Kamar Archie is still going to
Yeah,
OB to
he's
Oklahoma,
visiting. Yep.
and Oklahoma did throw an offer out to Zadrius Rainey Sale, current Washington commit, and a
Mm-hmm.
four-star player. They're also still in contact with Christian Jones. I don't really know how hard they're pushing there. Doesn't really seem like that's a major priority, but they're still in touch with Christian Jones, the top 100 four-star linebacker out of the state of Nebraska as well.
So yeah, that the Kamar Archie thing is kind of where my head goes when I think about the other linebacker that could be in the class, and obviously teammates with Cole Breiler, 4-star defensive tackle. They will both be visiting at the same time for the Champion Barbecue. We expect Cole Breiler to be in the OU class right now. Like that's our prediction, is he's going to be in the class. And so, and we think Oklahoma leads for Cole Breiler. On that same note, Archie though has been kind of an enigma a little bit. Like you feel like Oklahoma's in a good spot there. You think they're in a good spot there, but how confident do you really feel about that is kind of 2 separate things, right? Like it feels like Oklahoma is going to be in a really good spot. And if his teammate chooses Oklahoma, one feels, especially since they decided to take the visit together, the other one might follow suit. But that's just guesswork at this point. And so that's something to watch because, again, if there was a position where you're going to look at and go, yeah, I really don't care what they do at linebacker at that position. It's linebacker. It's linebacker. And I think safety is another one that you look at and you're like, yeah, whatever, because you've built up such a surplus of young talent that it doesn't really matter. At that same token, on that safety note, an interesting little tidbit popped up today, and that was for the longest time, Amarian Robinson, also known as Man Man, 4-star safety out of Little Rock. It just felt like Arkansas, this home state team, really didn't have much of a say or a play in this thing. Now it kind of feels like they do. They're going to get the June 7th official visit. Maybe it's just kind of a tip of the cap to the hometown team, the home state team. I don't know, but it's always kind of kids from Arkansas and their love for Woo Pig. Somebody that lived there in that state, it's all they got. It's all they got. Literally. It is Woo Pig from border to border, east, west, north, south. Those kids grow up absolutely enthralled with what we deem as a mediocre program. And I'm just calling it what it is. I'm just saying what it is. Hate on me all y'all want. I'm just calling what it is. When you get hyped over 8-4, you know, eh, eh. And I know people are going to be like, well, you're moving to the SEC. Get used to that. That's what Oklahoma's going to be. We'll see. At no point has any of those programs recruited at the level Oklahoma's recruited at. That's all I'll say. And yes, Oklahoma's probably has been for a rude awakening this season. But long term, I'll disagree with that. I digress. My point is that it's always kind of scary when the home state team starts to get a kid on an official visit. Now, right now, it seems like Oklahoma is going to get the final visit with Amarian Robinson. They have been the leader for a long time. The other thing is Pittman and company actually going to be there come December?
No, absolutely not.
My bets are not. Yes, exactly. I'll let you say that.
I feel about Sam Pittman the same way I do about Billy Napier. Good people, good coaches,
Great
better
coaches.
coaches than the results have shown at their
Yes.
respective institutions. But dead men walking heading into the 2024 season.
Yeah, it's a little rough when KJ Jefferson is is at UCF and not in Fayetteville. And he's a damn good quarterback. So that was a tough loss for them. So I say all that because it is something, Parker, that you have to watch a little bit when stuff like that starts to happen, because I hit somebody up and I asked the source, like, how did that happen? And this source said he was advised to take that visit. I'm not going to repeat the full context of that back and forth, but there was some head scratching going on. So there's that. Then you've obviously got to worry about Oregon with Amarian Robinson. But it feels like Oklahoma is just, and Georgia. Georgia's the other school that you got to worry about. So, yeah, it's just, that's something to watch for there. I I think the other thing that's been big news, obviously, is after Jermaine Lole decided he was going to flip to Texas, Parker, that Oklahoma decided they were going to go after another transfer defensive tackle. Two names have been prominent for us behind the scenes, and that is Brandon Lane out of Stephen F. Austin, who Oklahoma's done an in-home with. Florida State, he's already taken a visit to Florida State. He's supposed to visit Oklahoma and LSU over the next 5 days. Don't know if those two visits are going to take place. We will see. And I say we don't know that because University of Louisiana Monroe defensive tackle Aiden Hutchinson is another name out there to
Aiden
watch.
Huntington.
Aiden Huntington. Why did I say Hutchinson?
Aiden
Aiden
Hutchinson
Huntington.
would be the former second overall draft pick of the Detroit Lions.
That would be an amazing thing to happen.
If Aiden Hutchinson had any eligibility left.
Yeah, Aiden Huntington. Um, so that was just a Freudian slip, I guess. But if Oklahoma pushes for Huntington, Duke can ball. He had 8.5 sacks last year.
8.5 sacks. Like, I don't care what level you're playing at. 8.5
Yeah.
sacks. That'll play. He's 6'1", 281 pounds. So definitely a different body type than Jermaine Lole.
Grayson Halton body type.
Even like a Jacob Lacey body type.
Yeah,
Jacob
kind
Lacey's
of.
measurables were almost identical. He was 6'1", 284. So
No,
it almost feels like that's more of a Jacob Lacey replacement than a Jermaine Lole replacement, which Jermaine Lole was a Jacob Lacey replacement in the first place. So I think you're bringing in a higher upside version of Jacob Lacey if you land Aiden
yep,
Huntington.
that's
16
it.
tackles for loss, too. Like 8.5 sacks is impressive. 16 tackles for
Mhm.
loss?
Yeah, and
Yes, you'll
I
take
don't
that.
and I don't want to get too far deep in the weeds when it comes to Huntington because we have the information on OU Insider, Parker and I. Before, like for those that don't know, we started recording and we stopped. We started recording again. A source called, and we have been just beating down the doors trying to figure out what the heck is going on with Aiden Huntington. And we finally got confirmation on some things. And so now we had to restart the podcast all over again. So, like, this has been a work in progress for us to figure out what's been going on because this whole transfer thing has been really weird, Parker. Like, since the Lole situation took place and then um, Dominique Williams situation all took place, right? Everything's gotten a lot quieter. And it's been very hard to, I guess, filter out information. And on that note, I'll just say this. Todd Bates was in Louisiana today.
Coincidence?
We'll leave that up to you. What show was that off of? Where it was like that conspiracy theory, where the guy always was like, I think not. No, that's false. At the end of it, you know what I'm talking about? And they
I
make
don't have
like
a
those little
clue.
gifts. In the
Don't have
comments, somebody tell me. Like, I watched it. Was it Twilight? I can't remember. Somebody in the comments tell me. You'll know what I'm talking about. Anyways, that's just what that reminds me of. When you're like, coincidence? I think it's like the big conspiracy theorist stuff. Um, Basketball. That's the other thing that's going on. We'll talk a little bit more about OU football recruiting because we got some interesting 5-star information. But I want to get to basketball first because Porter Moser has been, I guess he's just, Parker, I'm going to let you go to town on this. But he's kind of putting together a decent roster now. What the heck's going on? Like decent, not great, decent.
He's putting together a roster, Brandon.
Yeah.
It is a roster. It's going to take a hell of a coaching job to win 20 more games with this group. Because they got the guy they got today, Muhammad Wagi.
I was going to let you say that.
He averaged 3 points a game at Alabama last year, less than 3 points a game. So what you'd hope is that that's the type of speculative addition that Jalen Moore was, somebody that for whatever reason, it just wasn't working for them at their previous stop. And then you get the best version of them when they show up in Norman.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a very real chance Muhammad Wagi ends up being another version of Yaya Kita, who's done nothing at
Mr.
Oklahoma
Magoo.
over his 2 seasons in Norman. Absolutely nothing. And so the front court is It's not good, Brandon. The front court is not good. I
Go
think
ahead
the
and say
back
his
court is
name.
fine. The back court is not ideal, but the back court is fine. There are pieces there. And especially if Dayton Forsyth is ready to rock, ready to make a substantial contribution, I tend to
Golly, have
think
you
he
seen
will
what he's
be.
been doing?
Yeah,
Goodness
man, like
gracious.
how many kids are doing what he's doing, period, regardless of where they come from, what their star rating was. Like
If
they're
he was
very
anywhere other than Dale, Oklahoma,
I know.
would he be not rated higher than what he is?
Oh, he'd be ranked incredibly high. He'd probably be a top 100 player in the country. And he is somebody that really has the opportunity to be the X factor for Oklahoma when the season rolls around because he could be the guy that the rest of the country isn't necessarily counting on to be a cornerstone player at Oklahoma. But
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, conference play rolls around and you got to deal with this white freshman guard who will just pour from anywhere on the court.
Yeah.
So Forsyth could certainly raise the bottom line for Oklahoma. I don't know if there are really any other pieces in the backcourt that have that capability. I mean, you know what everybody else is, right? Jaden Jones and Bryson Goodine, those are shooters, and that's
Mm.
pretty much all they are, and shooters. You look at that front court, man, and it's just Sam Godwin is your starting five next year. I don't like that. I don't like going into the SEC with Sam Godwin as your starting center. Maybe I'm not giving Sam Godwin enough credit, Brandon, but forgive me if that's my perspective.
You don't want my take on that. So go ahead and you already know that if I get him, him and the Groves bros, man, him and Tanner Groves can they're just so hard to watch.
The other guy that intrigues me is Duke Miles, the High Point transfer. I mean, he
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
score. He
Well,
scored 17 and a half points per game at High Point, which great. You know, you do that High Point. Does it translate to that level at a place like Oklahoma? Well, your instinct would be to say no, right? But by the same token, Javian McCollum came from Siena. So maybe.
that dude balled out at Siena. He was averaging 20 something, before he came to Oklahoma. That's what made him big time. Like I always thought like when they got him that was kind of the piece. Like, and I went and watched him. It reminded me of Allen Iverson a little bit and how he played. But there's another player that Oklahoma. I'm gonna let you go ahead and say the name that Oklahoma's in on junior college target.
Jeff
But
Wonkwo.
this dude is SGA with Jalen Moore hops.
Whoa.
He plays like SGA. If you go watch his film, everything is like you, you he never gets in a hurry. Like everything's at his own pace, but then he somehow will explode out of the gym
So we
on a
are
couple of
not
fast breaks.
tempering the expectations
No,
then
okay. I
with
want
Jeff
everybody to know.
Wonkwo.
Like, time out, time out, time out. He is not going to be on the level of the runner-up MVP of the NBA. Like, let's be real. I'm talking about playing style. I'm not saying this is his ceiling is SGA and Jalen Moore combined. No, that's freaking stupid. His playing style is like a player with SGA's playing style and Jalen Moore. He has the same frame as SGA a little bit. The one thing people need to know about him is that he's a former football player. And it's like, you know what? I think I just want to go play basketball.
Which typically is the other way around, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is.
Typically
Yep.
it's hoopers that decide to try their hand at football. But so Jeff
And they're usually
Wonkwo,
successful.
context, he was committed to Cal. He's a junior college transfer, a native of
Mhm.
the OKC area.
All American, first team All American junior
Uh,
college, by the way.
Played at what is the one up in Arkansas City? Cowley County Community
Yep.
College. Uh, signed with Cal, recently released from his letter of intent. He was on campus at Oklahoma the next day. So you expect that this one would move quickly, I think.
Do you know why he was released? Because he watched Mark Marsden's dance after he won their third gold ball with the Lakers back in the day. If anybody knows what I'm talking about. Have you
I,
never seen that?
no, I don't recall. I'm not old enough to like. Obviously, I remember Mark Madsen as a player
Mark
vaguely,
Madsen,
very
yeah.
faintly, but not from the Lakers days. That's for sure. If they get Wonkwo, okay, again, that's another nice backcourt piece. I think it went, by the way, Javian McCollum averaged 15.9 points per game his last year at Siena. So Duke Miles actually outpaced what McCollum was doing. So if he is an even better souped up version of Javian McCollum, okay, you got something there. But then again, is well, okay. For those on the YouTube side, Brandon is now showing me the video via his
It
phone.
never gets old, dude. It never gets old. It is the whitest thing you'll ever see. All right, go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Where even was I? Oh yeah. Uh I mean, if you have good backcourt play, great. But is the end result all that different from this past season? Do you end up in the field of 68 if all you have is a strong backcourt and you're just kind of getting by with your front court pieces? Again, I have my questions about the structure of this roster, but it is a roster nonetheless. It
Hmm.
took them almost 2 months, but pending the addition of Wonkwo, Oklahoma will be fielding a basketball team in 24-25. So there's that.
And then you see like the difference. Do you want to know the difference in the programs? Like, so watching the Oklahoma City Dallas game last night, and what do I see on the front row? John Calipari. Like Arkansas got John Calipari. Did you know for those little quiz for people in the back that when Oklahoma chose Jeff Capel, do you know who they went after and who was showing wanted said they were interested in Oklahoma at the time when they were at Memphis? John Calipari.
Really?
And Oklahoma went after it was right after I think it was after Capel, actually.
That would have
And
been Kruger that they landed on.
yeah, they landed Kruger
Well,
instead,
no,
which I don't
Calipari would
think.
already have been at Kentucky at that point.
Okay, well then it was Capel. It was Capel. And they went and they got Jeff Capel instead. I'm not hating on it, but I mean, how things would have been different.
Boy, John Calipari, like insert him into the arc of OU basketball
Yeah.
lore
I
in
wonder how
place of
many
Jeff
people actually
Capel.
remember that. Like that was a name that was floating around. Like Oklahoma was going to pay big bucks for John Calipari, and it was legit. And Memphis signed him for a big extension. He obviously was using Oklahoma to get that, but things were going on behind the scenes that were moving that forward at the time though too. So just kind of funny how that is. And I'm watching that and I'm seeing him there and they're like Arkansas's new head coach, John Calipari. Like you see all these other programs that have like the faces in basketball. Moser was that 3 years ago. And essentially since he's come to Oklahoma, it's been like people totally forgot how good of a coach he is because Oklahoma's been so meh since he's been there. It's kind of unfortunate. It just doesn't fit. But neither here nor there. It seems like this may be the old last go around unless they make it to the old tournament this year. So we'll see. Um,
You know what it reminds me of? And
what's
like
that?
I'm not trying to make a comparison here
Go
necessarily. I'm
ahead.
not saying, oh, he's the next this guy, but you remember when Josh Pastner was a hot up and coming name in the coaching profession?
Wait and
And then
just tanked
he
Memphis.
got to Georgia Tech and everything just hit a plateau.
Oh, it's Georgia Tech after Memphis. That's right. Yep.
Yeah, he went
Yep.
Memphis to Georgia. Like that's
Yep.
kind of what it's reminiscent of with Porter
Yep.
Moser, where 2021, like he's the hottest name on the carousel, and that's the home run hire by Oklahoma. And we all thought it at the time, like there was nobody that had beef with the hire, but now here we are 3 years
Mm.
later, and it's just like, oh yeah, for the rest of the country, it's like, oh yeah, Porter Moser,
Yeah.
he's at Oklahoma.
The
They're not
Moser hire
losing,
was
but they're
such
not
a
winning.
big The Moser hire was such a big deal that it was on Good Morning America. You remember that he did that Good Morning America interview?
Oh, did it have to do with Sister Jean? Is that
I
why?
don't remember. He had OU stuff on. He was like, "Yeah,
Okay.
Joe C's the greatest." Blah, blah. They made such a big deal. Like, yeah, I can't remember if it was Good Morning. It was on a big morning show. May not have been Good Morning America, but it was on a big morning show, and I just thought that was just like that was peak. Like Oklahoma was coming back. Now I have to ask you. You made that comparison. Has Georgia Tech ever been the same since Pastner's been there?
No, I mean, they sunk lower and lower,
Don't do that
deeper
to OU
into
fans. Don't do that to OU
obscurity. Like
fans.
and
Yeah.
again, like, well, Josie's not going to let that happen, right? Passner was at Georgia Tech for 7 seasons, and they just got
Oh.
worse and worse and worse until he finally got canned. Obviously, Joe C is a forward, and he's a forward thinking enough guy that he's
Mhm.
not going to allow that fate to befall Oklahoma. If it's a steady decline into the cesspool of mediocrity for 7 seasons, it's not going to take him that long to part ways with Porter Moser. And as I've said, I hope Porter wins. I hope he turns this thing around. Looking at that roster right now, I'm not terribly optimistic. Go prove me wrong, by all means. Make it happen.
Um. So did Chris Bosch played 1 year at Georgia Tech, right?
Chris Bosch, gosh, I that's so long ago. I don't know. I couldn't tell you where Chris Bosch played college
Yeah,
ball.
he played
I
1 year at Georgia Tech. That's right.
Okay.
Okay. I just that was the last big name from Georgia Tech outside of Chris Paul that I could think of. So they had Stephon Marbury, and then they had the trio back in the '90s. I mean, that was like a really good program back in the day. And then, not Chris Paul, excuse me. They had Stephon Marbury, Chris Bosch, Nick Anderson, and there was another player that they had that was really good. I can't remember. That's who I thought Chris Paul. But anyways, Chris Paul was Wake Forest. But all right. Anyways, I digress. Um, I'm gonna let you rock here because baseball's hot and you follow baseball closer than I do. But I believe how many series have they swept this year?
They've swept 6 series in Big
That's
12 play.
unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Like what's funny because you look
And
back
the
at,
Big 12 champs, by the way.
and I wrote about this today, but you look back at Skip Johnson's career at Oklahoma, every single even year, they have a dang good baseball team. It comes in waves. It comes in 2 year cycles. Like it's almost like they have to regroup, and it's because they lose guys in the draft. That's
Mhm.
why. For instance, 2018, you had Steele Walker and Kyler Murray that were at the forefront, and Oklahoma didn't quite make it to super regionals. They lost in the regional final to Mississippi State, who ended up losing in the super regionals to Vanderbilt, who obviously was at that time a perennial regular in Omaha. 2020 rolls around, and I still maintain that's the best OU baseball team I've ever seen in my lifetime. That OU baseball team would have laid waste to the Big 12. And we know how that all ended. COVID-19 resulted in the truncation of that campaign. And 2.5 months after they started the season 14-4, and we're looking for all the world, like one of the absolute best programs in the nation, Skip Johnson watches his entire pitching staff get drafted within the first 4 rounds of the draft. Cade Cavalli went 22nd overall to the Nationals. Levi Prater was a third-round pick of the Cardinals, and Dana Acker was a fourth-round pick. I want to say it was the Rangers that drafted him. And so those were your 3 starters. Those were the 3 guys that were your meal tickets on the mound. I mean, you could write. Dane Acker had thrown a no-hitter against LSU a week and a
I
half
remember
before
that.
the season ended, and he was number 3. He was number like Cade Cavalli was your, he was your ace. Levi Prater was certainly in that same conversation, and Dane Acker was the very clear number 3. When your number 3 guy spins a no-hitter against a program like LSU, yeah, you got it rolling. You got to roll in your pitching rotation. They certainly did. Not only did they lose those 3, but they also lost their battery mate, catcher Brady Lindsley. He got drafted as well. And so 2021, they kind of had to regroup. And 2022, they kind of scuffle for the first half of the season. It was really when John Spikerman entered the lineup midway through the year that they really caught fire, and they ended up riding that all the way to the precipice of a College World Series title, losing in the final series to Ole Miss. They had, and I didn't realize that, I guess I didn't remember this until I looked back today. So I was like, man, it doesn't really feel like there were all that many players this year that were also contributors to that 2022 team. There were only 6 players. There are only 6 players on this roster here in 2024 that saw the field at all for Oklahoma in 2022. It's Spikerman, Nicholas, and Easton Carmichael among position players, and then 3 relievers: Carson Atwood, Carter Campbell, and Jet Lotus. Those are the only 6 guys that are holdovers from that 2022 team to this 2024 team. They had 11 players drafted after the 2022 season, including 7 of the first 300 selections. They had 3 players off the board by pick number 51. And so, yes, they had an outstanding baseball team in 2022. And we saw what they were capable of. Who knows if they have another bullpen arm to lean on in that championship series, and it's not just Trevin Michael against the world trying to slam the door, then maybe they end up hoisting the trophy. But that subsequent draft just ravaged the program. And they weren't half bad last year. They went to the NCAA tournament. They were never a serious contender for the College World Series. Here in 2024, man, it feels like this might be the team that has all of the requisite pieces to finally get over that hump. And you look at the statistics, you look at the advanced metrics, man, this team is superb. And in many ways, they're better, more impressive than that 2022 team. For instance, on base plus slugging. And that's the one thing that stands out about this team is that 1 through 9, they are on base machines, man. They work pitchers. They can all pop off and hit the long ball, but they just as easily can foul off a few pitches, record a quality at bat, end up logging a base on balls. But you look at on base plus slugging, the Sooners have 4 guys right now that are north of 1,000 in on base plus slugging. They only had 1 guy in 2022, and that was Peyton Graham. So that gives you
He's pretty
some
good.
idea of what they're capable of offensively. And then from a pitching standpoint, going into Omaha in 2022, they had 3 pitchers, all of 3 pitchers on that roster with an ERA below 5. They've got 8 of them this year. So yes, in many ways, this team is better than they were 2 years ago. And how remarkable is that Skip Johnson lost that many pieces from a team that went all the way to the final series in Omaha. And yet 2 years later, here he is. And not only are they right back in the thick of it, but they may be even better.
So, if I remember correctly, that 2022 team, they were so up and down during the season. Injuries, they had some things that derailed them a little bit. Um, and then they just got hot at the end
Yep.
of the year
Yep.
and ran roughshod throughout the Big 12 tournament, won the Big 12 tournament. They even go into the regionals unranked, right? They were an unranked regional team.
That's right.
They were the first unranked to ever make it to the national title, right?
I don't know.
Or one of the 2 or 3 that's ever done it,
I
something to
can't
that
recall,
extent.
but they had to go to Gainesville and beat Florida in their regional. Then
Yeah.
they had to go to
Game 3.
Blacksburg and beat
Yeah.
Virginia Tech in their super regional.
And the Florida one was a comeback. Like they looked like
Yep.
everything. Like game 2, they were dead to rights until was it Peyton Graham got up and hit just like a bomb
Peyton
to
Graham was so good. Like
yeah.
the one thing that Oklahoma does not have in 2024 that they did have in 2022 is a legitimate college baseball superstar. And it makes it kind of fun because uh,
Mhm.
this team has strength in numbers. It's not on the shoulders of one guy, and that's a cool dynamic. You know, you never know who's going to beat you, who's going to play the hero. But in 2022, man, it was so fun to watch Peyton Graham play. He's this long, spindly 6'4" shortstop. And
Mhm.
what's crazy is not only did he hit 22 home runs, not only was he the best power hitter for that program that year, but and this gets overlooked. He was a speed demon on the base path. He stole
Stole bases, dude.
34
Like 40.
bases.
Yeah, it was like 40, almost 40. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that's crazy. Like that. Yeah, that this team. If you haven't watched them, I've watched a few games.
Hmm.
And so I'm just saying, fans, if you haven't, give it a shot. Um, the other thing is their director of player personnel, Ryan Gaines, is my dude. Like I love that guy so much. I've known him for a long time. I covered his kid. He's so cool. Like one of the nicest guys walking the face of the earth. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for what they can do
And they're
down the
not going to
road here.
sneak up on anybody this year.
No, not this
Dude,
year.
I
No, they're
I
not.
remember I was in Las Vegas with
The new
Travis
rankings come
Davidson
out yet?
at the what now?
Do the new rankings come out yet?
In baseball?
Yep.
Yeah, the D1 baseball rankings came out Monday morning, and Oklahoma was number 12 in the country.
There
Uh,
you go. Yeah.
so
Wow.
I remember Travis Davidson and I are out there in Las Vegas for the overtime 7-on-7 championships in 2022. And throughout the weekend, we were there for 3-4 days, something like that. And throughout the weekend, we're keeping tabs on super regional play out in Blacksburg. And when they won, it was like, holy smokes, Oklahoma's going to the College World Series. Who saw that coming? And so instantly, like we have an 18-hour drive back, and I'm like laying all the travel plans to get up to Omaha the following weekend. This year, everybody knows what's up. Everybody knows
Mhm.
this team is capable of playing with anybody in the country and may very well be a national title caliber team. And so all of those plans will be made far in advance. Whether they come to fruition or not, that remains to be seen. But this Oklahoma team's not sneaking up on anybody this time around.
No, they aren't. And on the flip side, yeah, I have to say, I was watching softball team this past weekend, and they just kicked the crap out of Texas for the Big 12 title, and everybody kind of waved the white flag for them, right? Like this team isn't the same. I even tweeted out like they've got to find their groove again because they are not striking the fear in the eyes of their opponents the way that they did the past 3-4 seasons. And it's weird to say that when you've only lost 4 games, right? You're like 50 something and 4 or whatever the record is. And their record is insane. And they still didn't get the 1 seed, which I thought was a little weird considering they lost on a questionable call in Austin by 1 run, right? With the catcher interference or non-catcher interference or whatever they called it. And then the night before they lost in a 2-1 game, right? Oklahoma ends up winning game 3. They split the series with Texas. I think the one thing people lean on with Texas is they had more, I guess, power wins because they had better, more top 50 wins than Oklahoma did by like 4 or 5, whatever. But if the team that just won the last 3 national titles just beat the team that you deem the other team that could be the 1 seed, not just beat them, like dominated Texas. It was 6-1, right? Was the final score of that, I believe. And you give Texas the 1 seed and Oklahoma the 2 seed, like Oklahoma hasn't earned it throughout the last, not just this year, but the previous years leading up to it. To me, there needs to be a little bit of respect. I know you're just kind of splitting hairs and you're griping about just a gripe at this point, but there needs to be some respect. Like, give the girls some respect. Those seniors have won more national titles than everybody else in softball outside of the University of Oklahoma themselves, UCLA, and I think Arizona State. That's it. That senior class could potentially tie or no, that senior class will have two more national titles than anybody else close to them as a program all time outside of Oklahoma, Arizona State, UCLA. Again, I just respect, have some respect. So if they don't go and they don't win it, okay, whatever. But I'm going to put my money on the Oklahoma Sooners now that they've kind of got their groove back. And Kelly Maxwell is slinging that thing right now, man. She's she it looked like she finally kind of got like after she got through that Oklahoma State series, it was like, okay, she's good. Because that felt like it kind of seemed like the weight of the world was on her at that point. Right? Like, and rightfully so.
Sure.
So I don't know. I'm excited for the Diamond men and women because Oklahoma has two really solid teams that could make you kind of expect the softball team to play for the national title because that's just
They
what
were
they do.
they were that close to pulling the diamond sweep in 22 too, because
Yes.
obviously the softball team won the national title, and that was the big like talking point going into the final series in Omaha was, oh man, Oklahoma's about to. I believe that had only been done once before, and I can't recall who did it, but
It was either I think it was Arizona State, I believe.
it might have been Florida. It
Was
might
it
have been
Florida?
Florida. Also, you're thinking of Arizona, not Arizona State. Arizona is the school. It's
Arizona's,
historically.
yeah, Arizona. Excuse me. Yeah, that's what I'm
I
thinking.
think it
Arizona.
might have been Florida, but regardless,
That
it's
means
only
they've done it in
happened.
football and basketball and softball and baseball.
Yeah. It's only happened once before, had only happened once before to my recollection. But that's what everybody was buzzing about in Omaha was, oh, Oklahoma softball just won a title. Is OU baseball about to win a title too?
I mean that year was fun, and I think this year is going to be just as fun. I think I expect this OU baseball program to make it super regional. I do. I do. I think it will be a disappointment if they don't. They're
Oh,
ranked 12th in the
it would be a
country.
massive disappointment if they didn't go to a super regional. And
Yeah.
furthermore, like I think at this point, with how hot they have been down the stretch, it would be a disappointment if they didn't go to Omaha. And it's so hard. And I don't
Ooh.
necessarily want to set that expectation because, as I've said before, it is so hard to do. It is so hard to navigate the college baseball postseason, especially in a double elimination format. You got to go win a regional, then you got to go win a super regional. There's a reason you see a team like Tennessee in 2022 had one of the most memorable regular season runs in the history of college baseball. They went 57-9. 57-9. They could not be stopped. They could not be touched. And then Notre Dame knocked them out in their own
I
super
remember that.
regional in
Yep.
Knoxville. Notre
Wow.
Dame went to Knoxville and bounced Tennessee. So it's tough to do. It is tough to get to Omaha. It is not for the faint of heart. That run that it requires just to get there and then to be able to continue to carry it forward, win games in Omaha and put yourself in position to win a championship. Man, it's really, really tough. But this team has won 16 of their last 20 games, Brandon. They are as hot as anybody
Yeah.
in the country. They are firing on all cylinders. They've scored double-digit runs in 10 of those 20 games.
Is is the and that first off, that's amazing. Like this with again, they are fun to watch. They just are. They're fun to watch. They score a lot of runs. He, they're just fun to watch. Um, super aggressive on the bases, by the way. Uh, are they playing the Big 12 tournament in Arlington?
They are. That'll be next
Okay.
weekend. They close the regular season this
Yeah, in
weekend with the pregame set
Cincinnati.
against
Mm.
Cincinnati. And it's the Big 12 tournament next weekend.
Okay. So Oklahoma, let's say Oklahoma makes a super regional. Let's say that they end up hosting a super regional because they've won their regional. Obviously, let's say they go and they win the Big 12. They're like the number 6 or 7 team in the country. You're obviously going to host a super regional at that point. Right? Even at 12, there's a good chance you host a super regional. My question, do they host it in Bricktown? Because if they host it in Bricktown, that would be amazing. Because they used to do that.
Ooh, that's an
They used to
I
do that.
hadn't
They
thought
used to
about
host
that.
it. they used to host it in Bricktown when they did those things, or they hosted it back in the day, the All Sports Stadium when it was at the State Fair, because I was there when they played Auburn in 1994 before they went and won the national title in the Super Regional, because Mark Redmond pitched, RIP, the great Ryan Miner played Damon Miner. They hit back to back in the lineup. They had, I can't remember who else was on that team that obviously Kel Gundy pitched. Um, they had another pitcher. Was it Rusty Ortiz? I think Rusty Ortiz
Russ
pitched.
Ortiz, I don't think. Well, he
He was on
may
that.
have been on
He
that
was on
team.
that team. Yeah, he was
Bucky
on that team.
Buckles was the
Bucky Buckles was
shutdown
the
arm out of the
ace.
pen.
Yep, he was the ace out of the pen. Mark Redmond was the ace starter. I think Rusty Ortiz was the other one, and I may be wrong. Rusty Ortiz may not. I know that Bobby Witt was a couple years before that, but again, that was fun. I sat there with my dad. We went to every one of those games and watched Oklahoma just dominate Auburn. And then I got a Ryan Miner autograph. I knew Ryan from when I was a little kid because he dated a girl that babysit me. But it was still really cool to get an autograph. He autographed my Florida State hat. Not like it's Florida State hat. I don't know why I had it, but he autographed the Florida State hat. I don't know. But that's just how good of a guy he was. Um, but the atmosphere at that game was amazing. And they used to do the Bedlam games there. And the Bedlam games, my dad would always take me to those, and they were amazing. I mean, just the atmosphere was just legit awesome. Even when they played in Bricktown, they were awesome. And they used to do the Big 12 tournament there, and it was awesome. I hope if they host a super regional that the state gets behind them and they go and they host it in Bricktown, because one, that would just be a really good showcase
Yeah.
for the university to say, look, if you come to the University of Oklahoma, you get to play in a city like this. Like, this is cool. And it's right down the road. And it allows for more than just 3,000 people to get to that game. You can have 15, 20,000 people sitting at a college baseball game. And how rad would that be? That's just
Also,
my opinion.
this is a genuine question. This is not me griping. This is an actual question. I would love to know the answer. Jason Fairs is probably the one most qualified to answer it. Why is it that we can't have a natural grass baseball field at Oklahoma? Why is it that L. Mitchell has to be turf?
It's a great
Because
question.
I
I
don't.
don't know.
Maybe it's the baseball purist in me. I just don't like that.
You're not a
I don't
Montreal
like turf.
Expo fan? Where's that hat at?
Oh yeah, then
They had turf.
I know they had turf. Turf was. I mean, that was all the rage back in
Yeah,
the
in
day.
Toronto. Yeah, Blue Jays had turf too. Yeah,
But those were all domes.
they were. Hmm.
Well, most of them. There were a couple that were outdoor that had artificial turf still. But even so, like there's just something different about natural grass. You know, we got a natural grass football field at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, increasingly, well, and there are a few
It's
schools like
natural
Ole
gas
Miss has,
softball field too, I believe.
yeah, Ole Miss has gone back to natural grass at Vaught Hemingway. There are a few schools that have reversed course, going from turf back to natural grass, but natural grass is more and more a surface that you're just not seeing on athletic complexes and fields these days. And I like the fact that at Oklahoma, in pretty much every single sport except for baseball, there is natural grass. There's a natural
Yep.
grass football field, natural grass softball stadium. My question is, why can't we have this same type of dynamic on the baseball field? Why can't we have an actual surface at L. Mitchell Park?
It's a great question. I cannot answer that. I am not.
Again, I imagine there's a rationale. Like,
What is it called if you're a you're quarter oh my gosh, if you're into plants, like you're
into plants.
no, like you have like a green thumb, you're a quarter
You're thinking of the word horticulture.
horticulture. There you go. If you I'm not a horticulture. I couldn't, dude, it is almost midnight. I cannot think. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, dude, I know the word for that, but I can't. For the life of me, I cannot figure it out right now. It was right on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, horticulture. I don't know anything about that stuff. So I know how to mow a yard. I know how to plant flowers, and that's about it. So, and I know to weed eat. So, but
Got
I
you.
don't know how to upkeep the yard very well. I pay people to do that. Um, so let's get back to recruiting before we end this out. Spoke to a source earlier. I think you heard the conversation, so it doesn't really matter. But there's some quiet confidence in the Michael Fasusi sweepstakes in Norman. And I was literally asked to name and predict the 2025 class in my mailbox Q&A that I did today on OU Insider, and he was not on that list. I don't know how much I want to buy into that just yet. It sounds like he's going to be coming back for an unofficial visit. There is a certain degree that he wants to take, and Oklahoma provides that degree. Oklahoma is going to provide the NIL that he desires. I'm telling you that. Like, that is not going to be an issue. If the Dominique Williams situation, of the David Stone, Jaden Jackson, if those situations didn't prove anything other than the fact that Oklahoma will pay when they want somebody to play for them. And I I don't know if I want to believe it. I don't want to get the OU fans' hopes up, but it was an interesting conversation. I mean, you heard it. It was interesting, right?
It's not terribly shocking to know that Oklahoma still maintains some confidence with Michael Vasusi, but it is worth acknowledging OVs haven't started yet, and that's going to shake things up. Now, it might shake things up for the better. It might
Like, yeah,
shake
I think
it
they
up
get
for
the
the
last one with
worse.
him, don't they?
No, I think his is June
This is
14th.
okay. So he's going. He's then it's A&M's getting the last one, I believe. Then, right?
Yeah, there you go. And Lamont Rogers OV at Oklahoma is a midweek one, which is weird.
No, it's really not though. It's like June 20th
It's June
through the
18th
20.
through the 20th. 18th through the 20th. That's a Tuesday through Thursday.
Oh, it's 18th through the 20th. I thought it was 20th through the 22nd. I thought he moved it for his mom. Something with his mom. He said, I can't. I have to go back and read the text. I don't. Whatever. Um, but yeah, it was. I thought it was. Yeah, I was 2 days behind then because for some odd reason, I thought it was 20th or 22nd in the text that I got. But um, yeah, that's not ideal, but it's still the last visit for him. It is for Lamont Rogers. Like, that's the last OV for him. So I mean, at the end of the day, if Oklahoma really wants to play and they end up with, if they end up with Lamont Rogers, Basusi, Afalava, Ogumaro, Foje, and Hollenbeck, jeez, the Bill Beatenbow detractors will shut the up.
As they should. They should do that anyway, but no, that would help seal it.
For
I
sure. Yeah. I
it's
mean,
it'll be interesting, man. I think it's kind of fun to have this sense of mystery that's shrouding the offensive tackle picture heading into OV season because OU's in it for Fasusi and Haywood and Rogers, but you don't know which one's going to end up in the class.
no doubt. But I think on top of that, Oklahoma's trying to bring a lot of these guys in for unofficial visits during the midweek for like camps. They're not going to camp, but it's the atmosphere of the camp. It's being around the coaches. It's watching them coach. And what ends up happening a lot of times, Parker and you and I've seen this. We saw this last year. See, like, there's a lot of the commits that are going to be there at every camp. Elijah Thomas is going to every camp. Kevin Sperry is going to every camp. Marcus James is doing every camp. Tristan Haynes is doing every camp. Um, um, Zane Rose doing every camp. Like that way of thinking and having these recruits come in and be around that is infectious. And that's why Oklahoma wants them to do that. Because at the end of the day, it was kind of the same thing with David Stone, right? Like David Stone showed up, wasn't going to camp. He walks in there and starts camping, gets in line and camps. Not only did he camp for one day, he camped for 2 days 2 years ago and was awesome to watch because he was so good. But that was about the time when they had, I remember that camp, they had, I mean, it was Zadavian Sims, they had Colton Yarborough, David Stone, um, Kamari Moore, I believe, was there. Who else was there at that time? There was somebody else that was a big name.
Edric Hill
Edric
camped.
Hill was there. That was an awesome. That lineup was freaking ridiculous, by the way. And standing off to the side was PJ Adebora.
Yep.
So I was like, what is going on? Like that's about the time you realize Oklahoma, this staff was a little different when it came to recruiting D linemen. Like they were just different on a different level. That was kind of the first notice of that. So um and that's what makes these camps exciting. Like there's 4 elite camps. There's 4 junior high camps. And whether you're at the junior high or the elite camps, there's always an excitement of, oh my God, did you see that kid type deal? Or did you see who showed up at this elite camp? Nobody expected that. He surprised the OU staff by just showing up and being a walk-in signing. Like that is the fun part about this time of year, that you get like these groups that come in on vans. Like they come in like their vans, they van in together, and there's like 15 4 stars that just like walk out of this van, and you're like, what? And we don't know they're coming. We're just there covering the camp, and there it is. OU has like a horde of guys that they're coaching. So it's going to be really fun. I think the other thing is the quarterbacks, man, the 26 class. I believe it's the June 6th camp. But Jonas Williams, um, I believe Darian Coleman
Mm-hmm.
and Jaden O'Neal will all be at that camp. And there will also be a really good 2027 player there. Take a guess who that is, quarterback. It's your favorite.
2027.
It's your favorite.
2027 quarterback.
Who's your favorite 2027 quarterback? Think Louisiana. Shreveport.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I was like, man, have I formed strong opinions on the 2027 quarterback class yet? I spaced it. It must be, my brain must be shutting down this close to bedtime. But yeah, Peyton
Oh,
Houston, if he's going to
there
be
you
in town,
go.
I will definitely look forward to watching that boy get some throws in at
Yep.
the
And he'll be
Everest Center
alongside,
because,
yeah.
oh man.
And he'll be alongside Kevin Sperry. So you're going to have Kevin Sperry, Deron Coleman, Jonas Williams, Peyton Houston, and Jaden O'Neal all in the same camp. And there's a good chance that you'll have like Tyson Poguy and Kason Delgado. Also, obviously, two OK preps. Tyson Poguy, OU fans ought to remember the name. Also, Poguy's kid. There's a good chance he's going to be at that camp as well. Out of Mustang, he's one of the top 27 kids in the country. You have Kason Delgado, one of the top 27 kids in the country out of Tulsa Union. So it'll be a really fun, exciting time. That's why I love camp season. Love it, love it, love it. Um, One last thing, Parker. You finally watched NBA basketball. And did you thunder up or did you go for the Mavs? I got to
I
know,
wouldn't
man.
say I thundered up. I watched the game as a very neutral onlooker with no rooting interest whatsoever. I will say, like I did watch Game 4. I sat there and I watched Game
And he
4,
hates NBA people.
which
I
is
just want
more than
people to
I have
know
done for
this.
the
Yep.
NBA in a long, long time. I was reminded watching Luca why I came to hate the NBA because he's got superstar syndrome, man. And I stopped watching the NBA about the time where Luca was just kind of coming onto the scene and really becoming the player that he is today as far as
Uh,
his stature and level of notoriety. Uh, and he wasn't like that then, but like today's Luca, man, it's why I couldn't stand watching LeBron or Harden or Kyrie or any of the
yeah.
superstars of that era, of this era, is that all they want to do is complain at the refs.
Mm,
That's gosh, man, every single whistle that they don't get, and there's supposed to be a whistle every time they take the ball to the rack in their mind.
mm.
Every time they don't get a whistle, it's just there are words I want to use that I shouldn't use. I
You don't
know
need
we're
to.
not
People
bound
bought
by
it.
FCC
Yep.
regulations here, but even so,
But kids listen to
we'll
us.
keep
So
it
yeah.
family friendly.
Yeah.
Uh, I was reminded why I hate the NBA in watching Luca. However, what gave me hope that I might learn to love basketball again at the professional level is that, man, SGA scored 34 points, pretty much all of it from mid range. Who shoots mid range shots these
He
days?
does. That's what he lives off of
And
is
that's why
just
I'm saying,
taking people to the rack and pulling up. Yep.
okay, okay. If more dudes played like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, I could get down with it. I think the Rockets made me hate basketball. I think it was the Harden era Rockets when they would turn every single basketball game into a track meet, and it kind of became endemic across the NBA where
Mm.
these teams just dribble up and down and it would be a 3-point shootout all night for 48 minutes. The art of the mid-range is lost in this day and age, but I respect the fact that Shea is bringing it, and maybe he's not bringing it back. Maybe it's unique to his game, and maybe it's something that doesn't really catch on. And the 3-point avalanche continues to get further and further down the mountain. But it is refreshing to watch a guy like that play an old school, nostalgic type of basketball and dominate at it.
Yeah, he's fun. And I'm a Thunder fan, so I thought it was just funny to hear somebody that's not a Thunder fan gripe about. But it's been a kind of a reigning thing with Doncic throughout this playoff is even now the national media is going, stop, dude. Like you're ruining yourself. And I wish they wouldn't have because I want Doncic to continue to do what he's been doing throughout the series. I hope he doesn't wake up because he's really freaking good. Like he is.
No, he is.
It drives me nuts how good he is. As a Thunder fan, I hate it. I hated watching Dirk play because he was so good. Like when they played in the playoffs, it was like Dirk Nowitzki would just freaking kill the Thunder. Just absolutely kill the Thunder. And I don't want to see that happen again. It may not tomorrow night or Wednesday night, which I'm super excited about game 5. I I have hope again that Oklahoma City can pull this off and make it to the Western Conference Final. They're babies. They've got like 50 first round picks over the next 6 years. So like they're going to be really good for a really long time. They have all the cap space in the world to go make moves this offseason and be even better next year and sign guys to max deals. And so I'm excited about it as a Thunder fan, but at the same time, I'm nervous. I'm a nervous Nelly during those games. Like my heart races the whole time. I don't get a chance to be a fan ever anymore. Like it's been 2013 since I could really be a fan. And was when I got into this industry, particularly with the University of Oklahoma. And so you have to temper it, right? Like you've got to
Mhm.
be professional about everything. So you can't wear your emotions on your sleeve. So it is almost like I don't know how to describe it, Parker, but I love the fact that I get to yell at a television. I get to be nervous about something and put myself in something emotionally that's bigger than me. And I haven't been able to do that since Westbrook left and CP3 left in 2020. So it's felt really good to get back to that. And I'm excited. NBA's fun. I like the fact that they're back to the 90s, just beat the living crap out of each other on defense type of ball. I've missed that. I've missed that because it was, you looked at them and it was a foul for a long time. So it's been fun watching the torture chamber just completely abuse Doncic. That dude can barely walk after every game. So um, it's been fun. All right. If you're not on OU Insider, I'm sorry, Mavs fans. You won't have to put up with this very much longer. When this series is over, whether you guys win or Oklahoma City wins, everybody gets come back together as one because nothing splits the OU fan base like Oklahoma City, Dallas Mavs playoff series. It was like that a decade and a half ago. It's like that now. So, or 12 years ago, and it's like that now. Is what it is. We're going to have some fun with it. We still love you. Hope you guys still love us. If you're not on the OU Insider, look, we got some great transfer defensive tackle information that we talked about earlier in this podcast. Don't want to miss that. Uh, Aiden Huntington is a name to watch. Also, Brandon Lane is another update that we've had on there. We've been talking about him for a while. Um, but the Aiden Huntington thing is something to keep your eyes and ears down for as things start to progress with OU in the transfer portal. We will talk a little bit more about offensive line and where Oklahoma is going to go because there's a chance they may not be done. It may not be in the portal, but they may not be done. They may be looking to see is there any May grads other places. So we'll talk about that on OU Insider as well. And Parker and I have got plethora of notes coming for you guys on another potential transfer quarterback that I haven't. We didn't even talk about that Parker on here, but we're going to have that note over on OU Insider here
It'll be a nice
over the next
surprise
few
for
days.
some folks.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Um, anyways, that's going to do it. Go to OU Insider, sign up. We'd love to have you. Give us a chance. 1 month. You get all of the stuff that's about to happen. There's big visits taking place over the next month. There's camps. The OU staff's on the road right now. There's a lot of recruiting information and transfer portal stuff going on over there, even with the basketball stuff. So go over there. We've got you covered. Brody's got you covered on the basketball front. Jesse and Brian got you covered on the baseball and softball front. And we have everything going for you on OU Insider VIP. So give us a try. $9.95 a month, $99.95 for a whole year will get you all the way to this point in 2025. Subscribe. Finally hit 15,000. We're trying to get up to 17,000 by the start of the season. Let's go. Let's go. OU fans, you guys are the best. We thank you guys so much for allowing us to do what we do for you all because without you, we can't do it. So please subscribe to this YouTube and please go subscribe to our OU Insider VIP. All right. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. We're going to go to bed because it's late, but you guys have a blessed night.